The Murder of Michael Jackson, The Cover-Up and Conspiracy, written by Deborah Stefaniak, narrated by Aurora Goldstein. Cover photo, Give In to Me, by Stanger in Italy, Flickr.com. Taken May 4th, 2008. Licensed under Creative Commons. Attribution 2.0 Generic. Copyright 2014. Deborah Stefaniak. All rights reserved. ISBN 13-978-150-584-2845. ISBN 10-150-584-2840. Any homicide investigation warrants the question, what was the motive? In the case of Dr. Conrad Murray, there was none. He would have made more money keeping Michael Jackson alive. For some others, however, there were many. Contents. March 2011. Page 6. Words from Beyond. Page 8. Getting It Out. Page 14. Asking the Questions. Page 20. Visions. Page 34. The Documents. Page 45. Clarifying Visions. Page 49. The Final Vision. Page 56. Looking Back. Page 65. All Roads Lead to Sony. Page 68. The Autopsy Report Findings. Page 77. Medical Evidence Collected. Page 80. Cover-Up. A planned effort to hide a dishonest, immoral, or illegal act or situation. Conspiracy. Criminal conspiracy is an agreement between two or more persons to commit a crime at a point in the future. Criminal law in some countries may require that at least one overt act must have been undertaken in furtherance of that agreement to constitute the offense. There is no limit on the number participating in the conspiracy and, in most countries, no requirement that any steps have been taken to put the plan into effect. For the purposes of concurrence, the act is a continuous one, and parties may join the plot later and incur joint liability. Conspiracy can be charged where the co-conspirators have been acquitted or cannot be traced. March 2011. It was mere days after the passing of Elizabeth Taylor. She was a dear friend of Michael Jackson's and someone I had known to stand by his side in his time of need. Both she and Michael were gone now. I sat at my computer in the kitchen, thinking how nice it would have been to have met her and thank her for her friendship and support of a man I had come to know in such an extremely unorthodox way. Michael Jackson and I had somehow been connected throughout his life. I'd received visions, I'd call them. He'd be sitting on a plane or watching TV. Sometimes we'd even talk, although not out loud. The talks turned into conversations, and the conversations often turned into meetings. He had passed over, however, and with his passing I thought the visions, the talks, and the connection would follow. They didn't. They continued. Continuing the journey from my original book, Another Part of Me, An Extraordinary Tale of Twin Souls, I will describe the events that have transpired since the death of Michael Joseph Jackson in relation to his murder. These events and visions I have received have allowed me to see the real person that killed Michael Jackson. Sorting through the evidence, I was astounded to see that all of it was there from the very beginning of the trial of Conrad Murray. As you follow this story along, you may recall the findings and evidence presented in that trial, the evidence presented in the Katherine Jackson versus AEG trial, and the ongoing dispute between the Michael Jackson estate and Michael's previous manager, Tome Tome. The circumstances and people in Michael's life will be presented in such a way that you too will finally know the truth about what really led to the murder of one of the most famous entertainers and humanitarians in the history of our planet, Michael Jackson. Words from Beyond. In the instant I thought of her, she was there. Striking violet eyes I had never seen but had always been told about. Raven hair and a warm, welcoming smile. "Thank you so much for all you did for Michael," I said. She laughed. The kind of laugh that would come from deep inside the pit of your stomach. Contagious, completely and utterly heartfelt. We spoke for moments, it seemed, reminiscing on how it would have been nice to meet in the physical. How I one day had wanted to meet her and offer my thanks for being such a great friend to Michael. Elizabeth Taylor was surprising, not only to have been visiting me, but her sheer presence, her laughter, and her humility seemed to be a complete package I had never expected. I smiled and was delighted at her visit. When I had thought she had left, I could hear her voice. "Michael, you have to tell her why you're here." I froze. I had seen Michael. He had appeared as a full apparition in front of my television set a few days after he passed. He was present in my meditations, and I had seen his life pass before my eyes, even feeling the expanded state of his energy joining with the all. I thought I had sent him on. I didn't want to keep him here. He deserved to be happy. When I asked him what happened, he told me very little. Someone gave me a shot, and everything went black. I didn't kill myself. I had thought perhaps there was an accident. Maybe he just wanted me to know it wasn't his fault. Yet here he was, still in my home, and I didn't even know it. My mind searched for reasons why he might still be with me. Did he need something? Was something left unfinished? Did he need to say something directly to me that he hadn't said? Our time, I thought, had passed. We had missed the opportunity to come together physically, so why was he still hanging around? At the moment I posed the question in my mind, the answer came. He was there to help me. Somehow help me traverse through life. After his physical death, my life too had come to an end. It wasn't physical, it was emotional, mental, and spiritual. I was left alone, and apparently he wanted to help. I was reluctant. He should move on, not be forced to stay with me for any reason. He deserved to be happy. Yet at the moment, I didn't realize what that meant. Several months had passed. I still questioned why Michael would be with me. He seemed to stay back from me, observing. Then just when I didn't expect it, I'd hear his voice. A sarcastic and funny comment, or a pleading not to yell at my dog. It was delightful in a way. I had begun to know him on a day-to-day basis, of how he really was in life, not just in our conversations that seemed to be from afar. He was funny, sensitive, and would often call out to Elizabeth for help when he was at his wits' end with my pity parties. He had proven to be trustworthy and a good friend. He told me about the real motives behind people's intentions, and although I never wanted to believe him, he was always right. I marveled at his wanting to be with me, so when we began to talk about his death, I began to get the feeling there was more at play than I had once thought. As anyone might ask a friend, one day I just came out with it. "So what happened anyway?" He had told me just after his death that someone had given him a shot. Everything went black, but that he didn't kill himself. Foolishly, I thought it just meant he didn't overdose. Foolishly, I didn't even think about foul play. It was when Elizabeth herself chimed in and said, "The things they did to him were horrible, just horrible." When I began to get that frozen deer-in-the-headlights feeling again, I was afraid. Something awful had happened, and if I knew what it was, I wasn't sure if I was prepared to accept it. I waited a few weeks to settle myself. If something had transpired, I'd need to be calm for him to tell me. We made an appointment, a set-aside time when I could listen to all he had to say. I took my notepad and sat on the couch. Michael had told me when he was living that he thought someone was trying to kill him. I passed it off. Maybe it was a psychotic fan or someone from his past. But this felt different, and I knew I'd have to take notes. Sessions like this I rarely would remember. I had spoken to the other side for others, and oftentimes the information would come fast. And I never wanted to judge what came through. When that happens, you're just a medium, a conduit for information, sometimes not even retaining what you said. With Michael, I needed the notes. If there was some sort of horrible circumstance that surrounded his death, I'd need to look into it, get verification, then see if I could help. The trial was just beginning for Conrad Murray that year. I quickly started a blog to document as much as I could. If he was truly murdered, if there was foul play at hand, I wanted people to know. I wrote down everything he said, but I doubted what he told me many times. Now as I look back after finding out the truth, his words shudder me. Knowing what he said has been documented and in evidence with the LAPD since the investigation started. I was prepared to do the tour. I was giving it my all. They hired Murray to be my personal physician for the tour. They said they were afraid I couldn't handle it, Randy Phillips. When I went to the house, I was met with a slew of them. Everyone from Phillips, DeLeo, to Kenny Ortega. Conrad Murray told them he'd take care of me, except he didn't. Pretty soon I feel like I'm out of it. He'd given me propofol to sleep the night before. I was worried because I had these feelings about being murdered. I didn't know who, but I could feel it. It gave me chills. I was cold and my fingers were going numb. I used to say to Paris, "Daddy's going to feel better one day." Then it became Daddy needs to rest, to lay down and get well. She was like a little mother. She told me, "Don't worry, Daddy, I'll take care of you." The night I died, I was staying upstairs. Everything that was said before about being murdered is right. There was no gun, no knife, no strangulation. Only a wish for me to go away. Sony wanted the rights to my catalog. It was all over the day I signed the contract. From that day forward, everything changed. The propofol was increased and they took control of my life. Randy Phillips and Kenny Ortega were my go-to men. So I told them how I was feeling, and Kenny became concerned. We worked together before. Before I knew it, I felt drugged out of my mind. Murray walked out of the room and into the hall. The next thing I knew, they entered the room again. He gave me a shot and said, "This will put you to sleep," but it didn't. I was still awake. I didn't know what else to do. Everyone was running around trying to figure out what had happened. I was just standing there, not knowing what to do. He was smoldering me with his spit in my mouth. I couldn't stand the sight of myself. I tried to talk, but they couldn't hear me. Paris screamed, "Daddy, Daddy!" And that's when everything went black again. Next I knew I was standing in your living room, bewildered. I didn't realize what had happened right away. It took me a while. No one could hear me. I knew I could reach you. I waited until it was time. Waited until I could talk and sit down so you could write. I'm not here to startle you. I'm here to help, to find peace and love. I love you more than you know. A man put a needle in my arm, an IV drip in my leg. My arm was sore from pins and needles in my shoulder. I couldn't see. A brown-haired guy. They were going through my papers. I could hear them. They ransacked the house. There was a security camera. It was pointed at the gate, but that night something wasn't right. My life was turning upside down, and I didn't know why. I was out of my body, but not dead. He gave me the last shot, and I died instantly. The man with the brown hair, short-sleeved shirt, wide-open collar, white. I hoped he'd come back to see more, but he didn't. He stayed away while Conrad Murray cleaned up. I just stood there watching, helpless. He wrote down the time, Conrad Murray. It was significant. He had a pad of papers with him, taking notes. He said he carried it with him wherever he went. Black with leather trim.